For years, the PC versus console debate was pretty simple. It was a lifestyle choice, a matter of taste, which games you liked, which friends you played with, and how much money you had. You picked a side and you stayed there. But in 2026, something has shifted. The prices on both sides have moved. The hardware shortage is real and it's not going away anytime soon. Sony just announced they're killing the physical media, and a lot of people who have been console gamers their entire lives are looking at what is coming and asking themselves a question they've never seriously asked before. Is now the time to switch to PC? That's what this video is. Not a hit piece on PlayStation or Xbox, not a PC master race argument, just the most honest breakdown I can give you of where both sides actually stand right now, so you can make that decision for yourself. Let's get into it. Let's start with the state of console gaming right now, because I think a lot of people have a vague sense that things are rough, but the actual numbers are genuinely alarming when you put them all together. We are in the middle of a global hardware crisis. RAM and SSD prices have spiked dramatically in 2026 because manufacturers are redirecting their production toward AI data centers. And we have covered this in depth in previous videos, so you know the story by now. The issue is that consoles are hitting this crisis at exactly the wrong moment. This is the point in their life cycle when costs should be coming down as the technology matures. Instead, they've gone the other direction. Microsoft is raising Xbox prices worldwide on August 1st, 2026. $100 more for 512GB models, $150 more for 1TB models, and in their own statement, they confirmed that storage and memory costs have already risen 2.5 times, with another doubling expected by fall 2027. Sony has already raised the PS5 prices twice this year. The base PS5 is now $650 and the Pro is around $900. But here's where the numbers get really uncomfortable. Console shipments are projected to drop 19.5% in 2026, down to 33.9 million units globally. That reverses the entire boost the Switch 2 launch gave the market earlier this year, and those numbers are expected to fall further to 27.1 million in 2027. Microsoft's situation is particularly stark. They shipped just 3.2 million Xbox Series X and S consoles last year, the lowest annual total ever recorded, and during Q1 of 2026, quarterly shipments fell below 500,000 for the first time in the data set. Some industry forecasts are literally describing a rapid wind down towards zero for Xbox hardware sales. Now, zero is not a number you want next to your product. And the market as a whole is facing what analysts are calling a compounding problem. Hardware that is either too old or too expensive for most consumers, combined with a thin software slate outside of a handful of big tentpole releases. It's the 1-2 punch that kills momentum for any gaming hardware market. And right now, both of those punches are landing at the same time. Now let's talk about what's coming next, because the current situation is bad enough, but the horizon is what's really making people nervous. Leaks and manufacturing reports suggest that the material cost alone for Sony's next generation console is already sitting around $960. That's before markup, before a Pro version, before anything else is added on top, and this is the component environment we're in right now, before another expected doubling of memory prices by fall 2027. So when you hear people talking about $1,000 next-gen console, that's not fear-mongering, that's the math. And here's the thing that really gets me. There's normally a feeling that comes with a new console generation. Anticipation, excitement, you see the hardware reveal and you start saving, you count down the days. That is completely absent now. What's there instead is dread. People bracing for a console that might ship without a controller on the box to hit a price point, with 120GB of storage because storage is expensive, going fully digital with no disk drive, and launching with a thin software lineup because the studios that were supposed to fill that launch window have been laying people off for 2 years. I've had a few conversations with some of my friends asking, would you buy a $999, basically $1,000 next-gen console at launch? And what I got back was not hesitation, it was refusal. From people who have been buying PlayStation or Xbox on day one since they were teenagers, that is a significant cultural shift, and it matters. S&P Global projects that PlayStation 6 would ship about 4 million units in the first year, scaling to 17.2 million by 2030. The next Xbox is projected at about 2 million units at launch. These are not numbers of a thriving industry entering a new generation with momentum. These are numbers of an industry asking people to pay more for less and slowly running out of goodwill. Now here's where the conversation starts to shift, because while console prices have been going up, PC's entry point has been coming down, and the gap between the two is narrower than it has ever been. The PS5 and Xbox Series X are both now around $649 after repeated price hikes. A genuinely capable budget gaming PC, something that would run modern games properly, can be built for around $700 in components. That is a gap that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. But let's go beyond the sticker price, because that's where it gets important. Free online multiplayer. Steam charges nothing to play online. Absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, PlayStation Plus at a minimum is about $8 a month just to access online play. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is around $23 a month over 5 years. A PlayStation 5 owner on PS Plus Extra spends over $839 in subscriptions just to play online. Even the cheapest tier adds around $300 over that period. On PC, that money stays in your pocket. On PC, Steam sales regularly go 50 to 75% off major titles. Epic Games Store has been giving away free games every single week since 2018. GOG regularly drops full complete edition of games for under $1. Meanwhile, console games launch at $70 and hold that price far longer because there is no competitive pressure forcing them down. Now, this is something that is genuinely hard to overstate. On PC, you get access to over 10,000 Skyrim mods, deep Cyberpunk 2027 overhaul packs, AI-driven NPC interaction mods that let you have actual real-time conversations with NPCs in GTA 5, experiences that don't exist anywhere else and cannot be replicated on a console at this level. When it comes to PC, a mid-range RTX 5070 already outpaces current-gen consoles at the same price point. High-end PC builds are running Cyberpunk 2027. High-end PC builds are running Cyberpunk 2077 with full path tracing at frame rates and resolutions that current consoles simply cannot target. And notably, path tracing has been available on PC since 2023. It only reached PS5 in April 2026, 2 years later. A 2026 PC can stay relevant in 2030 with a single GPU swap. Console generations last 6 to 7 years before the whole thing becomes obsolete. PC components also retain roughly 70% of their resale value compared to about 50% for consoles. With PC, you're not starting from zero every generation. Now, I want to talk about the ownership conversation because this is the one that has gotten significantly more urgent in 2026, and I don't think it's getting the attention it deserves. Sony has officially confirmed that they are ending physical disc production for new games by January 2028. PlayStation is going fully digital, and Xbox has been quietly moving in the same direction for a while now. The only major console manufacturer still committed to physical media as a standard feature is Nintendo with the Switch 2. So if you're a console gamer, the one form of true ownership you had, the disc, the cartridge, something physical you can actually hold in your hands, is being taken away. And what replaces it on a closed console platform is a license. Not an ownership, a license. Steam's own subscriber agreement puts it plainly, and I quote, "Content and services are licensed and are not for sale. Both platforms are technically the same in this regard, meaning you're not buying the game, you're renting access to it indefinitely, provided the platform stays up and your account stays active." But here is the critical difference between PC and console in this area. When Konami pulled PT from the PlayStation Store in 2015, it became permanently inaccessible to anyone who didn't already have it installed on a PS4. That game, which is a piece of gaming history, effectively ceased to exist for anyone who tried to access it. There is no backup, there is no workaround, it's just gone. The same thing happened with The Crew when Ubisoft shut down its service in 2024. A game people had paid full price for became completely unplayable overnight, not just on PC, on console too. But on console, there was absolutely nothing you could do about it. The disc doesn't work without the servers. You own nothing. On PC, because it's an open platform, the gaming community has found ways to preserve access to what they have purchased. GOG is the clearest example of how this should work. You buy the game, you keep the installer, you store it wherever you want, and you play it anywhere with no internet verification required. No launcher checking in, no server dependency, you actually own it. And here's a real world example of why this matters, even for games you haven't lost yet. Red Dead Redemption 2, fully downloaded, fully installed. On a plane, trying to play offline. The Rockstar launcher needed to verify the purchase online and flagged the plane's Wi-Fi as a VPN. The game refused to launch. A fully paid for, fully installed game became unplayable because a DRM server couldn't confirm the purchase on an airplane. This is what digital ownership looks like when there is no fallback, and that is where consoles are heading exclusively. There's also a price competition argument here worth making. When you have one store, one place where every game for your hardware can be purchased, there is very little incentive to ever discount anything. You can walk into Walmart and find a game on the shelf for $20 because the physical copy needs to clear the shelf space for the next release. The digital store never runs out of shelf space. There is no competitive pressure. It never has to go on sale. On PC, there are multiple storefronts competing for the same sale. Steam, Epic, GOG, Green Man Gaming, the Ubisoft store, they are all competing with each other. And that competition is what drives prices down in a way single storefront closed console ecosystems simply cannot replicate. Now, here is the thing. This is not just a theoretical conversation anymore. The shift is already happening. At the start of every console generation, there is a moment where a portion of the audience reconsiders where they want to be. They look at what each platform is offering and they make a choice. Some of them choose the new console, some of them sit out and wait, and some of them leave the console ecosystem entirely. This generation, more people than usual are pointing towards PC, and it's coming from two directions at once. Some are being pushed there by rising prices, by Sony removing physical media, by Game Pass failing to deliver on its promise, by layoffs at studios they loved. They are not running toward PC so much as they are being walked out of the door of console gaming and finding PC waiting on the other side. Others are being pulled there by viral PC exclusive games spreading on social media that console players simply cannot access, by streamers playing things on PC that look incredible and that you cannot experience on PS5 or Xbox, by the growing realization that their PC can do everything their console does and more for a price gap that has quietly almost disappeared. Both forces are working in the same direction at the same time, and I genuinely think this generation's transition point, somewhere around 2027 to 2028, when next-gen hardware launches, is going to accelerate that shift more than any previous generation did. So with all of that said, I want to be completely honest with you, because if I just spend however many minutes telling you PC is obviously better and you should all switch immediately, I'd be lying. Console still wins on some very real things, and you deserve to hear them fairly. When it comes to exclusives, Sony's first-party lineup, God of War Laufey, Insomniac's Wolverine, and titles coming behind them, remains PlayStation only, at least at launch and sometimes permanently. Nintendo's library is Switch only, full stop. Zelda, Mario, Metroid. You cannot play these games anywhere else, and if those games are the reason you bought a console in the first place, no amount of PC horsepower changes that equation. Additionally, when it comes to simplicity, console setup takes about 15 minutes. Plug it in, sign in, play. There are no driver updates, no launcher sprawls, no GPU settings to tune, no display calibration menus, and for a lot of people, families especially, that friction-free experience is genuinely valuable. PC gaming has gotten easier, but it still requires more engagement with technology than a console does, and that is honestly the real conversation. And finally, the couch experience. Consoles are built for TV and controller gaming in a way that PC setups often aren't, particularly for third-person action games, sport titles, platformers, and casual local co-ops. You can replicate this on PC, but it requires deliberate setup. On console, it's just how it works. So here's where we actually land. Console prices are rising with no ceiling in sight. Next-gen hardware is looking at $1,000 or more at launch. The subscription model that was supposed to offset the cost of being a console gamer hasn't delivered, and Sony removing physical media closes off the last form of true ownership console players had. At the same time, PC's entry price has dropped low enough that the old argument, PC is only for people with money to burn, doesn't really hold anymore. The free online play, the cheaper games, the modding ecosystem, the upgradability, and the ownership protection that PC offers represent structural advantages that compound over time. But console isn't going anywhere. And for a specific type of player, someone who wants simplicity, plays mostly first-party exclusives, and doesn't buy games in bulk, none of the PC arguments above change the math much. So here's the honest framework. If you play a handful of games a year, care about specific exclusives, and want zero startup friction, consoles still make sense, even with the price hikes. If you play often, buy a lot of games, care about long-term ownership, or want a system that grows with you instead of aging out in 6 years, the case of switching to PC has never been stronger than it is right now. That's the trade-off, laid out as plainly as I can. Which side of it you fall on is yours to decide. But let me know in the comment section, are you switching, staying, or sitting this whole generation out? As usual, any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated.